Lesson 3. The Braggart. Nelson was a sailor. He lived in a small and beautiful village on the coast of the Black Sea. He was a jolly fellow and the people of the village loved him for his jolly nature. Often he went to the sea with his small ship. He stayed away from the village for many days. When he returned, he told the villagers many interesting stories of the strange and unknown people and places he had seen and visited. The villagers also loved to hear his stories. However, Nelson was a bragger. Quite often he told them stories which are really hard to digest. Though most of the villagers were very simple and believed whatever he said, there were a few who did not believe him easily. John was one of them. He was a neighbor of Nelson. John was an intelligent fellow and it was very difficult to convince him easily. Once, Nelson went out for a long voyage. He remained away for several months and when he returned, the villagers were glad. They thought that this time also he would tell them stories about some interesting people or thing he had seen. In the evening, all the villagers went to Nelson's house. They were expecting to hear some funny and interesting story of his voyage. "This time I have visited many interesting places," said Nelson. "I have seen so many wonderful things in the course of my long voyage." "Please tell us about them," said the villagers. "I saw a giant cabbage," started Nelson. "It was so big." "How big was that?" asked John. "It was much bigger than a cabbage we grow here. It was so big that even 100 men on horseback could stand under its leaves," said Nelson. "But where did you see such a giant cabbage?" asked Joseph, another villager. "I saw it during my visit to China," Nelson said. The innocent villagers believed him easily. However, John shrugged. He was always a hard nut to crack. "You might be joking," he said with disbelief. No, it's not a joke," said Nelson. John remained silent for some time. Then suddenly he said, "One of my friends had visited China once and he saw something very strange there." "What was it?" Nelson became curious. "It was a large cauldron. It was so big that 200 people could easily stand in it," replied John. "Really? But I cannot believe it. Did your friend tell you what the cauldron was used for?" Nelson said with an air of disbelief. John smiled. "Yes, I had also asked the same question," he said calmly. "And what did he say in reply?" Nelson was almost adamant. "He said it was used to cook that giant cabbage." Nelson was so embarrassed. He could not utter a word while the villagers burst into a loud laughter.